Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans by wrestling fans on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. And folks, this was another phenomenal episode of NXT. I have lately taken to calling it the Hour of Power because this is when WWE is at their absolute best. The absolute brightest stars of NXT were on display tonight. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
Absolutely, dude. This was a lot of fun. It's basically what we've come to expect of NXT, but you never know when one or both of us is going to have a little problem with the show. And in those cases, we have a segment that we like to call Heat of the Night.
And I feel like I should bite my own tongue for saying this, but I actually did have a problem with this show tonight.
And I know it, and I will sign on to it wholeheartedly, but it's still hilarious.
It is, because, the problem was, I'll come right out and say it, NXT said one thing, but they ended up doing another. Now, they normally have on NXT, the ring announcer, and I think that's Eden Styles, correct, Ash?
Yeah, I think now she goes by Eden Rhodes. That's Cody Rhodes' wife.
Yeah, wife.
Yeah.
Eden Rhodes usually does, Tyler Breeze has entered the building. So, when he's in the building, normally that necessitates that he's going to do something later in the show, whether it be commentary, an interview, a match, whatever, and it's always great. So here I am, anxiously awaiting for it, because to be perfectly honest, I feel like the build-up between Breeze and Neville so far, because they've just been teasing when he's going to cash in his championship match, has been pretty subpar at best. I expect it to intensify when he does formally make his intentions known, but until then it's been kind of lukewarm for me. So I'm on the edge of my seat thinking, what's Tyler Breeze going to do? Is he going to interrupt the tag match? Is he going to give the heels a win? Is he going to maybe assault Neville beforehand? What's he going to do? And he doesn't end up appearing. The whole show goes by, and he doesn't make a physical appearance. And the only reason I'm really taking contention with this is because NXT put it out there. They said Tyler Breeze has entered the building, and we know what that normally follows, so logically speaking, it just seemed like a bit of a head-scratcher, and yeah, I definitely just wanted to address that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's understandable that you would have a complaint about that. To me, the only reason that it's understandable is because we know that NXT records 4 episodes at a time, and because of that, it's perfectly understandable that they would say Tyler Breeze has entered the building on the same night, but then he doesn't show up during this chunk of the taping, but I'm sure he'll be there next week during the later chunk of the taping. So to me, yeah, like I said, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I understand the heat of the night, and I sign on to it even, but I mean, it's just a production oopsie rather than a full-on, oh my god, how dare you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're definitely correct, Ashton. This is something of production value and nothing more. And hey, everybody makes mistakes. I tolerated a lot more from TNA when I was still a fan of their product. This was a hiccup at best.
Right.
At least Tyler Breeze didn't show up in an absolutely wretched condition and incite fans to want refunds.
Right.
It was something on the part of an announcer, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. I guess it's just because we're such huge fans of Tyler Breeze that anytime I feel like I'm going to get my fix.
Well, I mean, if it would have been The Miz, we would have been applauding it that he didn't show up.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. So there's definitely that slant there, and I'd be dishonest if I said there wasn't. But yeah, that was my only. You could even demote it to a nitpick, but we air all those things in the same segment anyway, so I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our NXT review.
And we open this up like I'm really beginning to love how NXT opens up, and that is with the women of NXT.
Yep.
Specifically, Bayley and Summer Love and Summer Rae for the #1 contendership for the NXT Women's Championship currently held by Charlotte. And to me, Ashton, if it wasn't for the main event tag team match, for my money, this would have been match of the night. I loved what these women did in that ring. I was thoroughly entertained by their efforts.
Yeah, it was a fun match. I don't know if I would call it match of the night because we did get one squash match that, even though it was a squash match, still freaking blew my mind at every corner. But yeah, this was definitely a very fun match. Bayley was goofy and did her weird, like, rolling around on top of Summer thing. Like, she's trying to be some kind of amateur wrestler or something. I don't know. At one point, the crowd was doing like to the tune of "Joe's gonna kill you," but it was "Bayley's gonna hug you." It was hilarious. I love the NXT crowd. I swear.
It was hilarious, and Bayley really showed her competence as a babyface performer here, because when she was pretending to be an amateur wrestler with that maneuvering that you mentioned earlier, the crowd was chanting, one more time, and she listened to them. She adhered to the crowd because she knows that they're going to pop for it and just rally behind her even more. Have to be honest, with recent events, the finish of this match really surprised me. I mean, they had a great back and forth to precede it. Bayley had some great offense, from off the top rope and really getting the crowd into it. I thought they had some great counter wrestling between the hug life, the hug plex and everything else. But ultimately, Summer got her leg drop on the chest, which she calls the Summer
Crush.
Summer Crush, and she gets the win. But you know what? While I was either outcome was going to make sense for very different reasons. But while I thought that they were going to go with Bayley, you know what? I'm actually very happy that they went with Summer for two big reasons. One, it's going to add a nice resolution to this whole BFF storyline when they finally collide and get all the pieces in place going forward in the aftermath. Yep. And two, and probably even more importantly, we have to remember, as we've been saying throughout this entire review, Bayley is a babyface, and a very strong one at that. And how do you make a strong babyface even more likable? Put them on a chase. And this is Bayley's chase. And I
feel like this is one thing that NXT just flat out gets that the WWE doesn't ever do, at least intentionally. The one time they did it was with Daniel Bryan, and the reason it comes off as the fact that they did it is because they never intended on letting him reach the top anyway, but they were forced. Their hand was forced. And because of that, now, in hindsight, we can look back and say, oh man, WWE was really brilliant for how they booked in Daniel Bryan. They really made it seem like they were never going to give him the title. But they never were, and then their hand was forced, and they ended up needing to. So, hindsight being 20/20 really works in their favor there.
There was even a comic strip that made fun of that very fact, Ashton, like how you went through all that. It's like, it seems so brilliant. What a great way to push Bryan. And then I think it was Triple H's own kids, because he was reading the story to them, that were like, we're sorry, Dad, even we don't buy that. Because, WWE doesn't really work that way. But here's the thing about NXT, though. Even though they get it, I would have to argue that I think payoffs is something they need to work on, because I thought they did a phenomenal job with Sami Zayn, but they never gave him the payoff. Neville got that payoff. Right. And personally, to this day, I thought that was a mistake. To me, as much as I love Charlotte, I think Bayley should get her payoff whenever her personal title match comes. Unless they're going to have a series of title matches, then by all means, really make her struggle. But if it was going to be a one-off because Bayley has the climb, give her the strap, because she is, I think, one of the most over women in NXT now that Paige has left. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. She is. No doubt about it. She probably is the most over.
I can't even really contend that, Ashton. The reaction she gets and how much people love her, and commentary is always on point. I want to praise commentary again. They were masterful as usual. Lance Storm praised them recently. He says, I love them because they keep the focus on the wrestling, and they just really did excellent tonight, especially in regards to this match. Bayley's going to have a very bright future, and I do think we'll be able to call her a future NXT Women's Champion.